Sekeres and Price for Tuesday, January 7th, 2025, coming from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center in the show. A presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sekeres beside a citrus fruit discovering Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. I got to say, partner, working with you for 13-plus years.
Still full of surprises?
Still. Yesterday, I'm just scrolling through Twitter. Blake Price, I just had an orange that is making me rethink my approach to fruit. It was a life changer.
Yeah, it really was.
I'm sorry, we're a half century in and we're discovering oranges?
It was a new species I'd never come across before.
Well, share with the class.
Well, after a lot of help from our listenership and from my followers.
Oh, you crowdsourced it, did you?
We did. I did. I crowdsourced because the bag had been thrown away, clearly.
Oh, it wasn't just a single orange. It was a full...
Yeah, we had a bunch of them at home. I can't now. After you bring it up, I can't wait to get home.
Maybe you should have asked whomever purchased the bag. They didn't know.
I mean, honestly, who knows? It was a Cara Cara.
There's so many people in the household.
Oh, yeah.
It could have been...
Who's to say? It was a Cara Cara.
A Cara Cara.
C-A-R-A, repeated.
One word or two?
Two.
Okay.
Apparently their season is just kicking. I mean, the orange aficionados that are in our listenership and viewership, it's shocking. Apparently this is the start of the Cara Cara season, January. And let me tell you, they are spectacular. They are a navel orange that beats all other navel oranges by a country mile.
Let's see. Oh, they're from Washington? No, they're from Valencia, Venezuela.
I was so enamored with it, I gave one to my daughter, and she was like, really? I don't like oranges. I'm like, just try it.
Seedless, sweet, and low in acid.
Yeah. Perfection. Try it.
Characterized by little to no pith. Well, I like pithy, just not with fruit.
It was hard to keep the juice in the mouth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's how good.
How's that for a visual?
Yeah.
All right. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question today.
It's hard to keep the juice in the mouth of this show. There's a lot to chew on.
Just keep it in your mouth.
Yeah.
Were you bothered by the lack of response after Caden Gooley's hit on Jonathan Lecker-Mackey? Yes or no? You can vote at the Sekeres and Price channels on X and YouTube. I voted no. It's a clean hit. Kid popped right back up, put up a couple of points shortly thereafter. I'm just wholly against when someone delivers a clean body check in the National Hockey League that has got to be a wolf pack moment, that someone has to go over and ask the guy for a fight. No. Respond with a clean hit somewhere else in the game.
Which they did.
Respond by scoring a goal, doing something constructive to improve your team's chances of victory. But, I got text on it, and I saw the commentary, and I understand it's a little different when it's a small rookie winger who takes the brunt from a big, burly defenseman.
And boy, was he intimidated to the point where he scored 2 points and had a goal that really outlines what he's going to be about in the National Hockey League. Like, even Tocchet brought it up post-game and started off his answer on it, saying how he wanted a little more something, wanted the next couple of shifts, you want to see something. But then he eventually got back to, but hey, we did build a 3-1 lead. Yeah. It had zero effect on the hockey game. In fact, to the point where Lecker-Mackey's goal is on Gooley himself, who laid down the hit. Like, he places that shot past goalie. And the Canucks form a 2-goal lead afterwards as well. So it had no effect. It's actually Exhibit A as to why you don't feel the need to immediately go and seek retribution. They play physical. They out-hit every team every single night that they drop the puck on. The Canucks win the hit battles. This is not a flimsy team.
Thanks to Kiefer Sherwood.
Yeah. But even Miller had a couple of big hits last night.
Yep.
It's not a thing.
I'm with you. Blake and I are both driving the 2024 Outlander PHEV from Surrey Mitsubishi. And this is the first time I've driven a hybrid vehicle. To start, I couldn't get over how quiet it is.
Yeah.
Especially when you fire it up. But now I love the specific sound of it. To the point where I rolled down the window.
To hear the hum?
To hear the hum. Exactly.
Because it makes you feel like you're driving a land speeder in Star Wars.
Absolutely. That is it. That is so it. I feel like I'm driving a pod in Star Wars. It's amazing.
I didn't even plug it in last night. My charge lasted me through the errands of the day, and I was like, you know what? I don't even need to plug it in tonight. I'm going to make it through tomorrow on the charge as well. So still not using gas today. It's pretty amazing.
Attaboy. And don't miss out on that $5,000 government rebate on the Outlander PHEV while it lasts. See dealer for details and term. All leases are OAC. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey, or online at surreymitsubishi.ca. Our friend Daniel from Surrey Mitsubishi sent me a photo today. He was in Vegas at the Fontainebleau Hotel. You've seen the
Fontainebleau,
Way. They have a podcast studio right there in the lobby. They have people podcasting as you make your way around the hotel and casino.
Yeah, we know how that works.
Yeah. Get all sorts of looky-loose here. People who are at the Wall Center from whatever their business is, and they look over at the sign and they get curious, and then they poke their head up against the glass here. Some people even try and open or sealed windows. And today we got a visit from Comets Corey, our old friend from Canucks Army. Comets Corey Hergut and his wife Shannon down from Dawson Creek. So awesome to reconnect with them after a number of years. Okay, top story. Brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, and Foolish Winery. Another blown lead. 3-1 in the second period. Turns to 3-2 after 2. Turns into a 4-3 Montreal lead. Turns into a 5-4 overtime loss for your Vancouver Canucks. They manage yet another loser point. Do you know they're halfway to the NHL record for overtime losses? They got 9.
Yeah,
18 is the record. And we're right at the midpoint of the season come Friday's game in Carolina.
5 teams in the history of the National Hockey League have recorded 17 or more OTLs in a season. 5 teams previously have done this. One of those teams has made the playoffs. I went deeper down to the 16 team. Just know, the bigger that number gets in the third column generally means you're not that good a hockey team. So unless the trend reverses itself here in the second half of the season, it's not a very good sign for the Vancouver Canucks. These are not the good teams that are doing this.
6 losses in 19 games when carrying a lead into the third period. And as JPat tweeted, they've let multi-goal leads get away in 4 of the past 9 games. 2-0 in Utah turned into a 3-2 overtime loss. 4-1 versus Seattle, my God, somehow turned into a 5-4 overtime loss. 3-1 in the third in Seattle. They didn't get that one home, but they got the 2 points, 4-3 in a shootout. And then yesterday, 3-1 against the Habs. Give them, was it 6? 6 loss in 19 games? Give them 3 of those wins. Just make it 500.
Yeah.
Add 3 points to the Vancouver Canucks standings column. You're at 48 points. You're still the last playoff spot in the West, but you got a 5-point buffer against Calgary if that's the case.
Well, and if you win your next game, you're still on a 100-point pace for the season because the Canucks have only played 39 games. In fact, they'd have 2 games to get to that point. I mean, their last 16 games, 5, 5, and 6.
Yeah. It's so odd
What
seeing
about-
like that third column be so beefy.
Yeah.
The other thing, when you're looking across the Canucks in the standings page, the 7, 8, and 6 at home really stands
It
out.
really does.
But so does the 11, 4, and 3 on the road.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing.
And we're getting to the.
That third column, it should be noted, is not that beefy on the road. Like, that's an appropriate ratio of wins, losses, and OTLs. 11, 4, and 3, that's just normal. The more concerning thing is not being able to hold leads at home, not being able to win with the momentum of the home crowd in overtime at home. So last night was a bit of an anomaly in that it was only the third time the Canucks have dropped an overtime or shootout result on the road. But the road has been their sanctuary, and it's now showing signs of cracks.
Well, fair. Incidentally, that 6 in the third column, no team has that, home or away. The Vancouver Canucks are the only team that have 6 games decided beyond regulation, either at home or on the road. Road has been their sanctuary. Blake, it's almost to the point where I wonder what's going on with the players at home. Because it's just incongruous. 7, 8, and 6 at home, 11, 4, and 3 on the road. And frankly, I know this 5-game trip is daunting. As we talked about, even Montreal's not an easy out anymore. They've played a lot better hockey. Washington, needless to say, has been an excellent team this year. In fact, a terrific job being done there in Washington, both management and coaching. They lead the Metropolitan Division. Carolina has been one of the toughest outs in the National Hockey League for several years now. Toronto, we talked about it yesterday, is having an awesome season. And then Winnipeg. So you're up against all these heavyweights, and yet I still think I'd almost prefer them going through this gauntlet than having a 5-game homestand against the likes of Nashville and others with the way they played on the road. And particularly if JT Miller is going to play like he played last night. We have been sitting here waiting for JT Miller's breakthrough. And last night he had a breakout game. 4 points, scored on a goaltender, excluding shootout.
Did he ever?
For the first time since October 26th. His first goal in 9 games, period. And he was a beast. He was the JT Miller you know and love. He is the JT Miller that can be a first-line center on a 109-point team. And so my question to you, did it take a half season, or are we now going to see the best of JT Miller going forward?
Well, I mean, this happens in every sport where, I'm not saying this applies to Miller, but, you know, good players, or not even good players, less than good players, can have spectacular nights. Jeremy Lin did it for a fortnight. You know, you can get hot, but that's not what JT Miller's being paid for, to be a streaky hot player. Previous incarnations of JT Miller have shown up each and every night, battle-tested, battle-ready, and produced. Consistency. That was the hallmark. Again, I shudder at my October rant about JT Miller. But A, his turnaround in his leadership skills, and B, just the consistency. You for 18 months, you didn't wonder if JT Miller was going to show up. He just did each and every night. It wasn't always 4 points. This was his first multi-goal night in a year. But it was often multi-point night. There's a lot of 2-point nights in there, and it was just always there. So great that he did it. It was a spectacular performance. Exactly what you want to see out of him. I don't need 4 points out of JT Miller every night. But that kind of balanced performance with 1 or 2 points, by all means. So let's see it.
Yeah, because I had allowed myself to wonder, after the leave of absence, is there any putting this genie back in the bottle? Was he going to be a different, and Patrick Alvin even said he's going to be a better person, better player and better person. Well, even if you reject the notion that he was going to be better, is he going to be a different person And is a different person going to be able to play to the standards with the same raw energy, emotion, all the things that fueled JT Miller's success? And I still somewhat wonder that because it's now plainly evident, it's been brought to his attention, it's been discussed publicly that he rode Elias Pettersson to the point of alienation. So I don't, and look, for the most part, he tells you how he feels. He has been reticent to discuss this matter, of course. But I'd really like to know what's going on in JT's brain these days. Like, are we in fact going to be looking at a next step, a next stage in his evolution and maturity? Are we talking about someone who's just waiting for a shoe to drop and he's going to go back to being the same guy should they trade?
Well, Matt,
before
last night, I was worried.
Does he understand that, at this stage of the game, there may be people in the Canucks organization go, love the hockey player, but just can't have the human being anymore?
Before last night's performance, Matt, I was starting to wonder if there was another leave of absence coming. And that there still might be, but I'm just saying I was, based on his performances, I was a little worried that he maybe wasn't in a good space and maybe there was another leave of absence coming. So I think a big performance like that is helpful and in terms of confidence and all that. So we'll see. But the chemistry gets thrown a little bit of curveball with Pettersson's return, and we're led to believe he'll be back tomorrow. Now Pettersson's with the team. He's around the team. He's practicing with the team. So it's not like he's just coming from left field. He's been around, but a little different to have him in the lineup. Can they both now? Like, let's see 2-point nights out of both of them. How long are we going to have to wait till both of them have 2-point nights on the same night?
Yeah, they're both going at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's not a crazy ask.
That's something we took for granted in the early stages last year when they were just piling up points. It's been so elusive since then. And boy, does the complexion of this Vancouver Canucks team change, not to mention the feel, the vibes, the optimism in the market with their fans, if that becomes the case. That's their secret sauce to some degree, right?
I don't have the stat in front of me, but I can take a pretty strong leap. When both of them have multi-point nights, they're probably close to undefeated.
They're pretty good. Let's hear from number 9. Here's JT Miller.
I don't think the two-way has been, a huge problem. It's not like I'm stuck in my own end all night. Personally, I just think that, obviously the production's been a little tougher to come by as of late. So obviously when you spend more time in the other team's end, you don't have to play defense and you get more of a rhythm. So it's nice to see a couple go in. But as a team, I think it just needs to be a little more consistency. I mean, I think we have these spurts in games where the other team takes control of a little bit and we have a hard time of stopping that momentum and flipping it quickly. And that's just, I'm not worried about myself. I'm just worried about the team.
Yeah, and part of that is puck transportation and how much of the Canucks have struggled, especially when Hughes isn't on the ice, of just getting the puck into areas where the likes of JT Miller and Elias Pettersson can't score.
And he is a little bit right on his defensive. I don't think in half-court defense anybody's too worried about JT Miller. It's transition D, right? Like it's the back checking. So when he says I'm not hemmed in a lot, no, I don't think anybody suggests that you're hemmed in a lot. It's just when they do counter, sometimes you're not there.
So getting back to protecting leads, Coach was asked about this last night, and he had some theories, and I think, well, let's hear from Taka, and then we'll come back and discuss. Here's Taka on not being able to protect leads.
Confidence. I think there's moments when you need a guy to make a play. Seems like when a team puts pressure on us, sometimes we just start slapping pucks around when you should want the puck. If your buddy has the puck, you got to hang in there for him and want the puck. Sometimes there's going to be some contacts where you're going to have to go to an area and have contact to get it out. I think sometimes we're a little shy going to that area sometimes. But, we're working on it. We'll continue to work on it. We got a point. Disappointed to give it up, but we got to move on.
So I just want to go through this list. Confidence. There are some players on this team that just aren't confident with the puck.
No.
part of coaching is being able to instill confidence in players. It's typically done through practice and repetition, not to mention some of the psychological nurturing. That was great last year. It hasn't been the case this year. Pressure creating plays that are not precise and that put the Canucks on the back foot. But the point I really want to get to is wanting the puck. Blake, do Carson Soucy and Derek Forbort, and Noah Jolson and Vincent Desharnais want the puck?
Matt, the list of...
I'm not sure you can coach those guys into wanting the puck.
The list of players that have ever played in the National Hockey League that look like those four players that you just mentioned, particularly the three extra behemoths. The number of players in NHL history that have been of that size, that have been adept at wanting the puck, playing the puck,
small list. Big guy, small list.
It's a small list. We're talking a handful, and they were literally the best defensemen in the game. We're talking Pronger, we're talking Chara, like those. Like, when you're that big and you can play the puck, you are freaking special.
Yes.
When you're not, you look like this.
You are a prototype.
When you're not, you look like this.
You go first overall. You're Owen Power.
Yes.
More on him in a second.
So, this should not be shocking to this coaching staff
No.
and to this management group.
The final point, go to areas where you sometimes are going to take a hit. That's something I'd like to see improve. That's something where, and Tocchet has been so good about this. That's something where, eat a puck, take a hit for others. That sort of selflessness of play, that sort of bravery. That's something that I think can be energized. That's something that I think can be corrected, encouraged.
And often what you get when you...
The confidence, maybe, that one's sort of a gray area, but wanting the puck is one that I'm just not sure can be corrected without different personnel.
And I don't want to use Hughes as the example because few are as special as Hughes, but we'll use the exaggeration, if you will, to prove the point. Like Quinn Hughes could have he could be in a Canucks corner in his own end. Could have three opposition players around him. And if the puck is on Quinn Hughes' stick, guess what? He thinks he's in the driver's seat. I know what to do with this. I know what the play that I'm going to make here. And again, that's an exaggeration to prove the point, but the Sedins were the same way. You can put me into a phone booth, what you think is a phone booth, all you want. I'm going to be okay. Now, as you slide that scale into the middle to get to an Eric Brandstrom, for instance, obviously it's going to be a little less successful than it is with Quinn Hughes. But having a guy like a Brandstrom, doesn't have to be Brandstrom, go get somebody else, but a guy like of that ilk to play alongside one of these giants, and maybe you've got the salt and pepper that you need. But having four Redwoods all the time in your defense core, upwards of five sometimes, depending if Quinn Hughes is playing or not. I mean, we can't be surprised at the panic defensive efforts in their own zone and the lack of build-up from the back. We can't be surprised. It's not Chara.
Now, I know the Canucks lost, and I know for some of you it's as simple as Canucks win, good game, Canucks lose, bad game. But that was a fun game last night.
Well, it felt like a big game, too. Even just the presentation, Amazon did a great job. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
John Shannon.
But it's just,
there's always something about the Montreal crowd, right? Musicians will tell you there's nothing like a New York City crowd. Hockey, there's nothing like a Montreal
that was a
crowd.
Monday night.
No, I know.
It felt fun. Felt big.
When the Habs score, do you hear how loud the place gets? But the first period, you thought you were watching a playoff game.
Yeah.
The amount of physicality for two teams that don't really have much of a history, grudge, anything like that. That was tough hockey, man. That was an awesome watch. We asked earlier in the season, have you been entertained this year? And we had a lot of people going, no, not so much. This year hasn't been fun. That was a fun game.
Well, they score goals too. And that helps as well.
Well, of course. I mean, you need goals, or at the very least, you need chances.
Well, and here's the thing, okay? I don't know if this was on the menu.
In fact, from an entertainment point of view, chance is greater than goals. Goals are momentary excitement.
And chances you could be critical of, Matt. This is a team with 20 shots on goal again last night.
And Tocchet was bemoaning this today after their practice. They practiced in Montreal today and are making way to Washington. He bemoaned the lack of offensive zone time. And I wondered, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I wondered, as we know, that's a staple for Tocchet, right? The offensive zone.
Because that's also
hold on to the puck. It's
defending.
Exactly. It's a defensive tactic. Mm-hmm. Plus, we're looking for the grade A opportunity, or at least the B opportunity. We're just not shooting pucks from everywhere, like Carolina and Brind'Amour, which we're going to see on Friday. So I allowed myself to wonder, if Tocchet's talking about that, and if Tocchet is in fact willing to adapt and change midseason, and we have said this long about Rick, he is not your typical old stodgy set in his ways coach. Everybody remembers the diatribe in the hours after the Game 7 loss to Edmonton last year about, I got to look at myself, we got to do things better, there are things on me, transition. He was already thinking about next year. So I don't think we're looking at a stubborn coach here who is so set in his ways, and we're going to play this way, and this is our identity, and there's no room for any kind of modification. Again, with this defense core, Blake, because here's the thing. When the puck is on their stick in the offensive zone, it's not like you're brimming with confidence to be able to make the great pass, the great play to create that grade A opportunity. And with the shot totals being as low as they have been, and JPAT had a great tweet about this a couple of prior to the last couple of games, where if you break the season down into 9-game quadrants at the 36-game mark, it does you can do so evenly. The Canucks were below 23 shots per game in the most recent quadrant, and it's gone down from there because of a 22-shot effort, a 20-shot effort. What were they, 27 against Nashville? Whatever it was. Does Rick have to consider, okay, guys, I know what we've preached, and this is our philosophy, and we still believe it, but let's try and find a balance of more pucks on net, because then you free up the Redwoods, as you like to call them, who, when they don't see a play in the offensive zone that appeals to them, and let's face it, if you're fighting your confidence and you're not great with the puck to begin with, that's going to be a limited scope to begin with. Just put the puck on net.
Here's another reason why.
Let's try and whack for rebounds. Let's try and get tips. Let's try and do some of the conventional ways that NHL teams have long scored.
The other reason I would be okay with that, Matt, is there's a lot of good shooters in this team. Like, it's not just chumps throwing pucks on net. Like, there are underrated shots here.
Wow, Lekramaki, I mean, amazing.
No, but DeBruska's got a good shot. Suter's got a good shot.
Yep,
Sherwood's got a good shot.
Yes.
Like all these guys are, in terms of velocity, never mind accuracy, but just in terms of the ability to skillfully throw a puck with pace on goal. Like, the Canucks have got guys with decent shots, so volume might not be a bad approach here. And I understand why he was tempted to get away from it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just carte blanche. So that's the way I'm going to be all the time.
Yeah. Would love Joshua in the lineup if you're trying that approach, because he's
banging
good.
in.
Yeah, well, he's good in those tight net front errors. Anyways, Lekramaki said it yesterday. Said a couple weeks back when they first lost Hughes and Paterson from the lineup. Kid's got to play, man. You got no options. And I don't care if he's horseshit terrible for 55 minutes of the game. That is a one-strike shooter. We saw it again last night, not to mention the play to set up the goal. You just don't have enough offense, particularly with Paterson out of the lineup, particularly with Höglander and Joshua when he was playing in just dire slumps. You just don't have enough offense in the lineup to not let this kid play. And, I continue to read the insiders who say, the Canucks are, if they're trading Miller or Paterson, they need a center back, but they'd also like to fix top four defense and a middle six scoring winger. And I'm sitting there going, you have your middle six scoring winger in Lekramaki. You've got to play. He's got to play. You just got to let him play and live with some of his inexperienced mistakes.
And the more that he scores,
and frankly, we haven't seen
the more that he scores, the more of a distraction he becomes. Like he actually should have had 2 goals. Like that, the assist that he got is actually should have been a goal. He misfires and it turns into an assist. Yeah. But I mean, I believe if he gets his normal shot away there, that's in the back of the net. So,
I keep hearing and reading people, he's a replacement for Besser next year. No, he's a right now fix.
Maybe worth a
like
run.
That's what you have to consider here. If you're talking Alvin, the coaching staff and the management group, particularly from what Dreger told us yesterday, and that is if you're not seeing a contract extension for Brock Besser in the next month or so, I think you're probably looking at Brock Besser as being a trade bait piece and maybe the piece you've got to move out to get that top four defenseman.
Lekramaki is a star that's born. It's like a Kolsch beer from Yellow Dog Brewing. The Starborn Kolsch. Brew features 4 lucky furry friends right now from the Make My Pet a Yellow Dog Brewing Star contest. King Buddy, Gus, Yuka, and Winston. It's a collaborative fundraising contest with the BCSPCA. Yellow Dog raised a total of $220,000. So everybody raised their Kolsch to Starborn and the beautiful pups supporting the BCSPCA.
Saw what you did there.
Yeah.
Pretty smooth. Right. Lekramaki pup.
That too.
Quinn Hughes returned to the lineup. He played with a brace on his left hand. You were doing a deep dive to try and figure out what kind of brace it was.
Came up with nothing.
He logged 26 minutes and 15 seconds. Mike, you've got a broken hand. Similar? Are you aware of this brace?
Bones. It looks a lot like what I had.
Yeah. What is it called? What does it do for you?
It makes it so you can play hurt.
Okay.
I mean, what's interesting, remember he's been slapper happy. Be interesting to monitor the slap shots used from Quinn Hughes over the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Because, he's been so shoot happy. And a lot of them slappers. Mm-hmm. Do those just disappear for the next couple of weeks while he's coming back from this?
Tocchet's, he looked like he was bothered by a leg as well. And Tocchet acknowledged today post-practice that he's hamstrung, that he's playing through things. So we'll monitor his effectiveness. Still leads the Vancouver Canucks with 44 points in 35 games. So tracking towards a 90-point season yet again for Quinn Hughes. Did not miss so much time that I think he's out of the Norris conversation. Hart's going to be tough. Hart was always going to be tough. But he's 15 points better than JT Miller, who moves into a tie for second place in team scoring alongside Connor Garland and Jake DeBrusk. And all three of them are 1 point better than Elias Pettersson, who is now 5th in team scoring, 2 points better than Brock Besser, who is 6th. And yet, Blake, this stuck out to me today looking at their stat. Quinn Hughes, and plus minus imperfect stat. Acknowledge that. Hughes is plus 14. Your next 5 top scorers, the guys we mentioned, Miller -1, DeBrusk -1, Garland -4, Pettersson -3, Besser -6. Tells the story.
Mm-hmm. We've said it is.
There's Quinn Hughes, and this year there's several notches down to the rest of the Vancouver Canucks. Last year, Miller, Pettersson, Besser we're all in that next plateau right there with them.
It's a different team when Quinn Hughes is on the ice. It's as simple as that. And if I'm a forward on this team and the coach calls my number and I look out and Quinn Hughes is just coming off of a shift, I'm going to say that my shoelace is undone. Yeah. My skate lace is undone. I can't go out, coach. I'll make the next rotation. And you just hope that Quinn Hughes is out there.
All right, it is 2 months to the NHL trade deadline, and we're seeing more and more information out there. Frank Saravelli has published his trade board on Daily Faceoff. Elias Pettersson is the 25th name
of 25, yes,
on the board. So the last guy in there, and Frank acknowledges, as does everyone, that an in-season trade for PD is going to be quite difficult. He's an $11.6 million cap hit. Obviously, the Vancouver Canucks are not retaining, so you either have to find salary matches or and player combinations that the Canucks would accept in a return, or you have to find a team that is absolutely awash in cap space and could take on a $3, $4, $5, $6 million additional cap hit in making the deal. So very, very difficult. Nevertheless, he is there. Dhaliwal reported that he met with his agents yesterday in Montreal. Apparently Miller's agent was there as well. You wonder whether the conversations are going to take place here between the Canucks and JT Miller's agent about, okay, if we were to get offers from teams X, Y, and Z, would you waive for any of those? The information that has been out there thus far from Miller's agent is he's not willing to waive for anyone.
Nor have they been approached.
Get all that. I understand the hardball ploy. Agents often do that with a player who's got a no trade. Also, I think it's malleable enough that if a team comes calling that JT would like to play for, would like to live in that city, I think there's a possibility there. He's the more likely to be dealt in season, but of course that pivots on his willingness to waive that no trade clause. In the interim, he is going to say all the right things. He loves Vancouver. He wants to be here. Petey said that the other day. I'm sure fans in this market are now wise enough to the game that NHL players, teams, managers, coaches don't always tell you the whole truth. You know that. Now, interesting story from Josh Yohe out of Pittsburgh in The Athletic. The Canucks were offered Mika Zibanejad earlier this year from the Rangers. The Rangers called. They want JT Miller back, of course. He spent his first 6 seasons there. And the Canucks declined. And Zibanejad has a no trade as well. So that's interesting because we wondered about, would Zibanejad want to waive his no move? Darren Dreger told us yesterday there are a lot of Rangers players who don't like that room and would just as soon move, but they don't want to leave New York City because, hey, Manhattan is a hell of a drug.
So if that's the case, though, it means that offer was made and Canucks management just heard it and said, thanks, but no thanks. We're not even
bringing that.
We're not poisoning the well for that offer. So that tells you that I think that tells you, Matt, that you better bring your good stuff if you want one of Miller or Pettersson.
There would have been a time where I would have looked at Mika Zibanejad and said, okay, yeah, that's fair for Miller. Not so much anymore. I mean, he was a 91-point player, Zibanejad, a couple of years ago. That went to 72. Last year, he's 24 in 39 games this year. So, and he's minus 19.
I would be mildly curious if I was the Vancouver Canucks if there was only 2 years left on his deal. But the fact that you take on a big contract, that you get no further ahead, that's also a concern.
And he'll be 32 in April.
Yeah.
So he's similar age to JT as well.
Yeah.
He is a right shot center. A right shot center would be good. But I mentioned that the plus minus just searing. Blake, he was a plus 15 player last year. He's minus 19 this year. The other thing there is the last 3 seasons before this one, he's been just shy of 20 minutes a night. He's down to 18 minutes a night this year. So I think you're looking at a player in regression in Zibanejad. the one thing that might say otherwise, his shooting percentage is a mere 9.3. He is a 13% career shooter. He was near 12. He was over 15 in that 91-point season. So maybe he rebounds in the second half. But no, I think that's appropriate from the Canucks. I would not make the move, Miller, for Zibanejad straight up.
And I think for a team that was in the Final Four last year, I think you have to give it to especially the impact players. They're human. They're pretty bummed that they're a bottom feeder in the league now. And that's going to impact.
I think they're pretty bummed by their GM sending out a memo saying everybody's available.
Totally. But we say, oh, these guys are going to show up each and every night. When you're a last place team and you know what tasting the forbidden apple actually tastes like, and you've been deep in the playoffs, like, it's tough to get out of bed this season, I would think, if you're a New York Ranger. So I kind of get it.
Yohi reporting the Canucks continue to be interested in Marcus Pettersson, the Pittsburgh defenseman, but Pittsburgh is the first team out of the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
In the East. They're on 41 points, same as the Montreal Canadiens.
They're not making a deal that makes them worse. That's for sure.
No, I mean, their goal differential is minus 27. They haven't won a playoff series in forever. I don't necessarily think they're a cup contender, but
you never say never when Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin.
Well, and also when you're a new general manager like Kyle Dubas, there's the politics of, am I going to tear this down midstream while we're in a playoff fight? Probably not. Interesting stuff from David Pagnotta, the fourth period. And just conjecture, I want you to kick this around.
Yes.
Yeah. So Buffalo has been a tire fire again this year.
Yeah.
Worst team in the East. All this collection of young talent isn't fitting together. Some of the parts isn't there just yet. He wonders about Paterson with Owen Power as a principal. The first overall pick in 2021, who is also a Redwood at 6'6", 226. Now, the Canucks want a center back if they're trading Paterson and Miller, or Miller. And he's not a center. Doesn't mean the deal couldn't be expanded. Probably not going to get a top two center back if you're getting Owen Power, unless we're talking about a huge deal here with many, many parts. But Power, in his third full season in the National Hockey League, is 22 points in 41 games, 27 and 31 points the two previous seasons. He's playing more than 22 minutes a night.
No, 33 and 35 points this previous
Oh,
season.
sorry. Yes.
You look at assists.
Yes, that was his assist, 33 and 35 points. He's playing 22 and a half minutes per night. And very young.
He's just turned 22.
Yeah, like he and Quinn Hughes would be locking down your left side for the foreseeable future, particularly if you can get Hughes re-signed. What do you think?
Power to me is an interesting. I don't think he's ever going to be a 65-point defenseman.
He is on a long-term contract too at $8.35 million that goes all the way through the 30-31 season. No, when he was drafted, nobody thought he would be like a 60-point defense.
No.
I think you're looking at a 40-point defenseman, maybe 50-plus when he fully matures.
That's stout.
That is amongst the biggest. But, you talked earlier about the Pronger, the Chara-style guy. This guy might have the best chance of being that of any defenseman out there. The supersized guy who can play with the puck.
He doesn't play with a ton of snarl, though.
No, not yet.
I think that would be a big risk. I think he's a fascinating player to watch. Not saying he won't be a superstar, but I think there is the potential that he also isn't ever a superstar. I think it's a very much a non-zero chance there.
Is Liz Paterson going to become a superstar?
He's at least a star, and let me reduce it. I think there's a non-zero chance that Owen Power also never becomes even a star.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I am buying that Owen Power is going to be an all-star level player. If I felt assured that Elias Pettersson in an organization with JT Miller, in an organization that has thus far not been able to get through to him, was going to turn into a superstar here, then I wouldn't even go near this. But I think if you're having qualms about any of that, and of course you've got to make this decision before his no trade kicks in July, I think you have to entertain these sorts of possibilities. Here's the other one Pinota throws out. Minnesota's Marco Rossi, the 9th pick in the 2020 draft. Now, a little bit of a failure to launch there. If I'm not mistaken, there was...
long COVID.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But he was 40 points in 82 games last year in his first full NHL season, and he's nearly a point per game this year, 37 in 40, 15 goals, playing 18 minutes a night for the Wild. Now, as Pinota points out, Minnesota and a Rossi principal, who is the center, would require a whole bunch of cap gymnastics on the Wild's part because Rossi is playing at league minimum or thereabouts.
I mean, just it would have to be. I mean, he's a very diminutive player. 5'9" is his list, so subtract 2 inches generally is the rule of thumb there. Fun player,
Angry Elves line with Connor Garl.
Fun player, but it would have to be. It would have to be Rossi plus. Certainly Rossi plus
for Paterson.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd look at it now and go, he's out pointing Elias. He's playing at $870,000. He doesn't even have arb rights this summer, so you're going to get him on a reasonable ticket then. Cost per production, you're way ahead with Rossi.
Well, in this small sample size, yeah.
If he's able to maintain this.
I mean, is Rossi ever going to be a 100-point player? I would go on a very long limb and say no.
Okay, but he's looking at a 75-point season right now in his second full year in the NHL at age 23.
Yeah. He's a nice player, fun player.
Okay, so let's say he's a point-per-game player. Like, how do you think Elias is going to be racking up 90 to 100-point seasons going forward?
I think
like you're still that confident?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Okay, if you are, and especially if you think he's also going to be vying for Selke trophies, but that's a difficult award to win, and you also typically have to be a frontline penalty killer, and Elias hasn't been that.
No, but Elias Pettersson has got back-to-back years of cumulatively almost 200 points, and that's
okay. Anyways, interesting considerations, and needless to say, if you're taking calls on players of the ilk of Elias Pettersson and JT Miller with those sorts of resumes, yeah, look around the National Hockey League, and there will be some good players that you'd be looking at in terms of trade fits. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Greta, and I am so pleased to be able to say you can join us, the Canucks Army crew, for an unforgettable night. This is coming up on the 23rd, a thrilling evening presented by Fountain Tire as we watch Vancouver take on Edmonton. A rivalry night. We've been there for Vancouver-Edmonton games in the past. The atmosphere is fantastic. Exciting giveaways, including hockey tickets, signed memorabilia, jerseys to be won. The doors open at 5 p.m. The puck drop is 6 p.m. Each ticket grants you access to all the action here, and it's all in support of our charitable partner, One Broken Bike. VIP 4-person reservations include entry into the event, Greta Burger, and a beverage, plus a game card. Don't miss out. Secure your spot now. Go to nationgear.ca for an action-packed night with the Canucks Army crew. This is on the 23rd of January.
I think an Oiler game might be just what the doctor ordered for the Canucks, and they've got 2 of them coming up in the middle of the month. I think it's, for this group, obviously, for obvious reasons, a chief rival for this core group of players. Might waken them just a little bit.
We got J-Pat coming up here, and then John Shannon on, a night unlike any other previous. The Canucks on streaming, WWE on streaming last night.
They booed Hogan.
Debut. They booed the Hulkster. I loved it, too. I was like, really? all these years later on streaming, and you're trotting out the Hulkster and the Real American. You can't do better than that, WWE. Because they were hoping he was going to be cheered, right? He had the flag. No. They booed Hogan. Okay. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. I went under last night, so that was a losing bet. Of course, you didn't get your assist from Connor Garland.
No.
So I retain the honor. I'm looking at the college football playoff game on Thursday, and I'm doing so in part because even this morning the line has come down my way. I like Notre Dame to beat Penn State. It was 2.5 points this morning. It's now Notre Dame minus 1.5. I just like that Irish defense better, and I like the coaching better. Their head coach, Marcus Freeman, is going to be an absolute star. He may not get the NFL interest this coaching window because he's still coaching, but there will be a day where you're going to hear Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach, connected to all sorts of NFL jobs. So cheer, cheer, the gang's all here. Give me Notre Dame. Minus 1.5 Thursday in the college football playoff semi.
Looking at Macklin Celebrini tonight. Not him in particular, in specific. We're taking a look at the Sharks here. Closing out a homestand. They've won back-to-back games here towards the back end of this homestand. But they do have the Golden Knights in town. It's a big ask. But as a result, it's also a big number. And with a little bit of mojo here from the Sharks, they've been a little bit streaky. They've had these sort of blips, and their 2 wins have been over good teams here on this homestand. They still got home cooking. They still got last change. One more win before they head on the road, plus 220 on Macklin Celebrini and the Sharks over the Knights.
Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets, so whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Jeff Paterson coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. Weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
Sekeres Price from the historic Wall Center, Paterson from Lynn Valley, our Canucks reporter, and of course the host of Rinkwide Vancouver.
Did you get any sleep last night, or did the foghorns keep you up as well? Because that was a symphony at around 10 p.m. last night.
Yeah, I heard a few of those. I got the full effect driving home from the studio over Lionsgate after the hockey game and after Rinkwide. And yeah, I mean, I've driven Lionsgate 1,000 times in my life. I'm not sure I've ever felt it that sort of ensconced in fog. So it had the full
crazy
San Francisco effect going on there. It was kind of cool, but yeah, fog can go away now. And I liked the sunshine yesterday.
Yeah.
This morning over Burrard Bridge, it was also like a mauvish tint to the fog. It was like something out of the movies.
Aesthetic.
It really was. Okay, enough about fog.
Speaking of being in a fog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
So, and this might not be the sexiest topic to discuss off the top, but 6 losses in 19 after carrying leads into the third period, and I saw 4 of the past 9 games you've let multi-goal leads get away. Jeff, this team is always underpinned by great team defense, right? 5 guys playing fantastic team defense and then getting the saves when that breaks down. What's the status of the overall team defense as you see it right now?
Well, certainly the defense core isn't good enough. We've known that really all season long. But in saying that, it's the same defense core that's allowed them to build these leads, right? So they're able to get out in front. They just can't lock it down at that point. So there's a couple of things at play. I thought Rick Tocchet, as he usually does, had his finger on the pulse post-game last night where he talked about panic threshold and the fact that guys just aren't making the one play necessary. And I think if you look last night's game, again, they give up 5 for the 10th time in 39 games. Pretty tough to win in this league if you're giving up 5 on the regular the way that they are. But why are they giving up 5? In a 3-all tie, that Lane Hutson goal, like people will look and say, oh, just a brutal bounce off Quinn Hughes, unfortunate, and it was. But if you track it back, Montreal enters the Canucks zone, and the Canucks break up the initial rush. Max Sasson on the back check then just kind of blindly slaps the puck to the side boards. Now, Sasson has to make a better play, but I guess he's thinking that Phil DiGiuseppe is going to be on the wing, and DiGiuseppe will be able to clear the zone. DiGiuseppe is a beat late getting back into the play, and there's Lane Hutson to step up, grab a loose puck on the side wall, dive down, and bank it in off Quinn Hughes. So sometimes it is those small things that add up in a big way, and what does talk about? Compounding problems, and we've seen that way more this year, I think, than last year. Mistakes are going to happen. The other team's trying to pressure you and score goals too. Mistakes happen. It's, can you limit the number of mistakes? Can you mitigate the damage? And this team just seems incapable of that. And all of a sudden, 2 mistakes in the same sequence at this level, puck's going to wind up in the back of your net.
4-point night for Miller. He moves into a tie for second place in team scoring, 15 points behind Quinn Hughes. Is that a breakout game for JT, or is that a breakthrough? Are we going to see the JT of old from this point forward?
Yeah, I need to see him back it up, but I hope it, at the very least, serves as a reminder to him that, hey, like, I still got it. And we just haven't seen it. And obviously, he has been dealing with a number of things, going all the way back to training camp. Had the big night, opening night against Calgary, where he had 3 points, and he had the Gordie Howe hat trick and the late goal and all those types of things. Had an overtime winner in Florida. But really, those are sort of the 2 moments of the season for JT Miller. So I just hope on a personal level that this is a reminder that, yes, he can impact hockey games, that pucks can go in for him. And it was a well-rounded night everywhere but the face-off circle, and that's usually an area that he's really good, but we'll cut him a little slack there because, shots on goal. I like the shot from distance. The first goal, second one, getting to the front of the net, swooping in and grabbing a rebound there. A couple of assists. Again, I think he's an underrated playmaker, and we saw some of his playmaking chops on full display there, and was trying to be physical. And I know you guys have spent a fair bit of time talking about the hit on Lekkerimäki, and what a hit. I mean, that was just a classic hit. I had no problem with the hit. I'm trying super hard to get past this idea that guys have to fight after throwing the body the way that Caelan Gooley did on John Lekkerimäki, but I thought moments later, JT Miller tries to exact a little bit of revenge when he takes Lane Hutson into the end boards pretty heavily behind the Montreal net. And so I thought JT was trying to do the types of things that make him such an effective player. But guys, this is the other part of the equation. How many things have to go right for the Vancouver Canucks to win hockey games? JT Miller has a season-high 4 points. They get the captain back. He plays 26 minutes. He has a couple of assists. The prize prospect scores and has an assist. So a 2-point night for the first time in his NHL career. Oh, yeah, their leading goal scorer, Jake DeBrusk, he comes through on the power play when they're down and need a goal. All those things happen for the Vancouver Canucks. Check the boxes. Check. And still at the end of the night, they give up 5 and they lose. And that's just sort of what this group is. You never know from period to period or night to night. And unfortunately, there's just too many things. Even when things are going right for them, they end up going wrong.
And that leads you back to the defensive play because, they've not been scoring goals. They scored goals last night. 4 goals is an ample amount of goals to score to get a win in the National Hockey League. But this group of trees that gets so panicked with the puck not perfectly on their stick blade, exiting the zone is an adventure, which brings me to a guy that is not a savior. He is not without fault, but he's just different. Why do they hate Eric Brandstrom all of a sudden? Like, why is he persona non grata when very clearly the trees cannot move the puck out of their own zone?
Yeah, and there's a couple of things on that front, and I'll get back to Brandstrom in a sec, but did you guys notice Carson Soucy played 4 shifts in the third period? Like, he was having a tough night, and on the sequence that led to the Caelan Gooley goal that Rick Tocchet afterwards thought, it made it 3-2. It brought Montreal back in the game. It got the fans back into it. It was just a really tough sequence for Carson Soucy, and clearly Adam Foote and the coaching staff saw that as much. So he plays 4 shifts in the third period. Well, all right, he's having a tough night. You're going to park him. That leads to more Derek Forbort. more Noah Juleson. And Forbort left the game for a while there, and I didn't think he was going to come back, so he's playing on a bad wheel, and all of a sudden he's out there killing a penalty in overtime. I'm not pinning the loss on Derek Forbort, but again, you just see how quickly it gets thin for the Vancouver Canucks. If a guy like Carson Soucy, who has had his issues this season, if he's having an off night, they're looking for alternatives. So the Brannstrom thing is beyond me, Blake. I don't have an answer for you other than he's not tall, which... again, how's tall working for the Vancouver Canucks this year?
Yes, exactly.
And for them to choose Guillaume Brisebois over Brannstrom, the 2 games prior to this, they get Quinn Hughes back, so obviously Quinn's going to play a lot, and he did. But, I don't get it. Like the Nashville game last Friday, they get shut out. They had 3 power plays. Didn't even have a shot on goal on any of the power plays. And you got Brannstrom sitting in the press box when Quinn Hughes is out. Like that makes no sense to me whatsoever. And that was back-to-back. They had played the night before as well. Like how about some fresh legs and just a sort of shot of adrenaline into the lineup. So, yeah, there's a lot. And this comes back to Rick Tocchet. Last year, the Midas touch. And we've said there have been a lot of things with coaching this year that don't fully add up. And I think you heap this on the list as well. But it goes beyond Rick Tocchet. Like, at what point is management going to move? Like, we have talked till we're blue in the face about bolstering this blue line, and here they are bumping up against the midway mark of the season on Friday, and it's the same group that wasn't good enough on opening night, and now without Filip Hronek and without Hughes for 4 games, obviously was exposed on a lot of levels. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with management. I thought they would have thrown this group some sort of lifeline, but electing to play the patient game. But again, 1 win since Christmas. It's not really working out for them right now.
Well, I wonder if Tocchet scratching Brannstrom is his way of playing the impatient game and messaging up on high that, guys, we need somebody here. And I'm not playing this guy. Anyways, Lekramaki. And when you were in here for Blake a couple of weeks ago, Jeff, we were pounding the fists and tables saying, look, minus Paterson, minus Hughes in the lineup with Höglander and Joshua and others in these big scoring droughts, this kid has to play. And watching him last night, this kid has to play.
Yeah, I want to see more of him. 2 goals in 6 NHL games now, 3 points in 6 games, like half a point a game guy through a very short sample size. But, oh yeah, look at that. He's got 2 goals in the season. So does Nils Höglander. So does Dakota Joshua. And we know what a struggle it's been for a guy like Höglander. You love to see this from Lekramaki. He scores at every level that he plays. He is a hired gun, essentially. And for him to be able to get to the NHL and have early success, it sort of takes me back to Brock Besser. When he broke in, remember, turned pro out of college. We all remember his debut in Minnesota. But he ended up with 4 goals in 9 games the remainder of that season. And that set him up to score 29 the following year. Like, I think it proved to him that, hey, I can do this. I can score in the NHL. And so there are parallels there. Obviously, right shot guys, right wingers expected to score. And yeah, I mean, look, it's great that at 20 years of age, he's playing in the NHL. But one thing, if he gets the call up and he kind of spins his wheels, for him to have immediate success. And kind of frequently, his 2 goals have come from almost the same spot on the ice. Slightly different plays, obviously. One-timer against the Islanders last night off the rush. And I think the whole world knew that he was going to look off Tyler Myers and shoot the puck, and made the right call there. Look, we mentioned the big hit, kind of welcome back to the NHL moment, but a little bit of revenge in that it was Kalen Gooley on the 2-on-1. He was the defenseman on the 2-on-1. So, yes, Lekramaki takes his lick early, but gets a measure of revenge by scoring there. So, I like the way the Canucks have handled him. At training camp in the preseason, he played with Paterson, and really almost every game that he's been in the NHL, he's exclusively been with JT Miller. So they're putting him in a position to succeed. He is succeeding. Yeah, again, it's only 6 games, but this is a really good news story for both the player and the hockey club.
Do you feel bad for Nils Höglander? He has shown some signs. He's got a few assists in the last 6-7 games. So there's a pulse to his game at the very least offensively, but a penalty that is soft. But you get it. I mean, it was there, and you're going to have a bit of a target on your back when you're playing without a stick. You attract attention. What do you think he's thinking? What do you think they said to him after the game?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the coaching staff's patience has run awfully thin with him. He was a healthy scratch there a couple of games before Christmas. Now, since Christmas, and with Paterson out of the lineup, 3 assists, so 3 points in the 5 games. Like, that is a little bit of traction for a guy that just...
Something. Yeah.
And I like the play on the Miller goal. Wins a battle down low, carries the puck to the corner, sees the player wide open, and makes the pass. Like, there was a lot to like in that sequence, but I pointed this out on social. Like, he's tied with Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers in minor penalties taken. He barely plays for the Vancouver Canucks. Like, a big part of
And you play wing. Like, these guys are defending all the time. Like, dear
Exactly.
God.
But beyond that, like, you know, everybody's up in arms about, 8-10 minutes of ice time, and you're the team leader in minor penalties taken? Like, Max Sasson doesn't take a bunch of penalties and doesn't play a lot, but has found ways to contribute and be productive. So penalties are absolutely a huge part of the Nils Höglander story this season. And I'm with you, Blake. Like, sure, maybe a soft call, but you're putting the ref in a position to make a judgment decision, a split-second decision late in the hockey game, and without a stick, rarely do good things happen. And sure enough, a call is made. Would you love a penalty kill? Yes, but again, Montreal 4-on-3, the skill
4-on-3, so much space. Oh,
yeah, and so end of the ball game with Nils Höglander in the penalty box. It'll be interesting. You know, we're all waiting to see if Elias Pettersson's activated and is going to be ready on Wednesday. They don't have any healthy forwards available right now, so is Höglander going to come out of the lineup? It's possible if Pettersson's good to go. If not, then he'll stay. But how much he gets played and what this does again to this trust factor between the coach and the player that was already frayed, to say the very least. It's just hard to know. 32 games now without a goal for Nils Höglander.
You know what I want it to happen? You know, like there's always like a Division II football team that goes for it on every 4th down, and we get some empirical evidence about the risks of it.
It's usually a high school team, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
I want somebody to have an in-house rule. You lose your stick breaks, you go straight to the bench. See what happens. Because there was a moment before that comes around back to Nils Höglander's side where the puck's in the opposite corner. He's standing at the top of the far circle all by himself, just staring at space with no stick. Go to the bench. Like, have somebody else come over. Like, there was time.
You're better off playing a few seconds 5-on-4 than you are playing 2 full minutes 5-on-3.
Yeah, 5-on-4.5. I don't know. I would love to see that happen just to see what the end results are at the end of the year. We'll see.
The alternative hockey league. I like it. Alternative world. The parallel universe hockey league. I'm with you. There are a bunch of kind of rule changes I'd love to see just for one season in some separate league that's in a lab somewhere that allows us to sort of boil down and take these results.
What are we doing here?
We should mention that, look, Canucks penalty kill for the most part with the big redwoods on the back end, and that is one area I think that the size has helped the Vancouver Canucks. Penalty kill has been pretty good. But it got torched twice last night in the third period in overtime. First time since the loss to Tampa a month ago that they've given up 2 power play goals in a game. So it doesn't happen often. But again, when we ran that laundry list of all the good things that happen, it shows you how quickly that can derail a good night for a lot of guys by giving up 2 power play goals. And you lose a special teams battle in a 1-goal game, you end up losing the hockey game more often than not.
Mm-hmm. Last question. It's our Surrey Mitsubishi poll. Did you have a problem with no response after the goalie hit on Lekramaki?
No. Again, I think it was a case of a young guy returning to the National Hockey League and reminded of it in a painful way. It was almost a perfect body check. Like, as I watched it a couple of times, the contact was incredible,
amazing.
but it wasn't dirty. It was just absolutely catching your guy in the trolley tracks and keep your head up, kid. I mean, that is sort of the lesson here. But he gets his measure of revenge. Not only a goal, but the assist, 20 seconds apart. We talked about Miller trying, I think, if you're going to hit our skill guys, we'll hit your skill guys. It doesn't always have to result in the fight. I will say, though, and Rick Tocchet mentioned it after the morning skate yesterday, with Dakota Joshua now out week to week and whatever that's going to mean and however many games he's going to miss, he was starting, finally, I think, to have a little bit of physical impact, got in the fight against Nashville. And not that he needs to fight. He got hurt last year in a fight. But he got in a fight because the Predators took exception to a hit that he threw on Philip Forsberg. And in the game before that in Seattle, There were a couple of series and shifts where he was involved in chaos and he was into it with Brandon Montour. And, so I think we were seeing Dakota Joshua getting back to the physical way that he has to play when he's successful. And yeah, they're going to miss him. Because, look, the way this lineup is constructed, Kiefer Sherwood did his thing again last night, 10 more hits, although I didn't think he had a particularly strong game, and he was in the penalty box for the early power play goal. But you're going to get that from Kiefer Sherwood. JT Miller, on the nights that he's into it and motivated, he can be a physical force. And Phil DiGiuseppe finishes checks, but I don't think he's an intimidating presence out there. Beyond that, it's a pretty passive group of forwards. They've got the size in the back end and some guys that I think are willing to mix it up on defense. But just the way this roster is constructed right now, this isn't a group that is out there looking for that pound of flesh in terms of any sort of measure of revenge. So I wasn't surprised that there wasn't from the Canucks. And quite frankly, I don't think there should have been. I thought there were a bunch of good body checks in the first period. There were sequences there where the puck was clearly secondary on both sides. Like teams, it had a good feel. Like for a Monday night game, I thought there was a fair bit of juice in that hockey game. And
Jeff, I forget who tweeted it, but I saw someone say like the Canadians are treating this like game one, round one.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a playoff style game, especially early on.
I wasn't sure if I was just enjoying it because of the vividness of Amazon, like 20 minutes into the game, I'm like, this is pretty fun hockey.
That game has some thump, and then the other thing is the Montreal crowd usually sorts to elevate.
They were in a good mood. They were in a good mood too.
And they got a team that's chasing a playoff spot for the first time in 3 years. It's
I think quite a likable group. Like as I obviously at an arm's length with the Montreal Canadiens, but they've got some star power. A guy like Gooley throwing the body, like that'll get people into it.
Hudson, Suzuki, skill wise, that's
that guy. If things really get squirrely, he's around there and. The Canucks didn't see the backup goaltender, but what a story he is as well. Jakub Dobish with giving up 1 goal in 2 games. So, again, just bring it full circle. Like your point about 4 goals on the road. Like, I know they got a single point out of it, but they scored enough to win that hockey game. And I think that's got to be the biggest frustration, or one of the biggest frustrations for Rick Tocchet is you score 4 on the road, but you give up 5, and that math just doesn't square at the end of the night.
Especially talking hockey, you give up 4 or you score 4, you should win. Great stuff, Jeff. We're going to catch up with you later in the week. Thanks for this.
All right, guys.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sekeres and Price from the Historic Wall Center. This next segment brought to you by Ben Moss with a history dating back more than 100 years. Proudly Canadian-owned, operated. They've got Canadian mined diamonds to suit your needs, lab-grown diamonds, payment plans if required. 5 locations in British Columbia, Chilliwack, Victoria, Abbotsford, Coquitlam Center, and Willowbrook and Langley. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, for the love of jewelry. Here he is. He's got a new show.
He does.
It debuted on Friday with Darren Millard. He remains the most famous man from Oliver, British Columbia. Former executive producer, Hockey Night in Canada, Mr. John Shannon. Congratulations.
My goal is to host the show from Oliver. That's my goal.
That would be outstanding.
Eminently doable.
Yeah. In this world, absolutely, it's eminently doable.
That would be have a like a 10 a.m. tea time at Fairview Mountain. It would be
there. You go.
Be fantastic.
Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 100% hockey. John Shannon and Darren Millard.
Yep. Thank you.
And you've had 2 of them now. So
yeah, and tomorrow, Doug Armstrong, general manager of the St. Louis Blues and the head honcho for Team Canada at the 4 Nations Face-Off and the Olympics. So it'll be fun.
Which we are moving towards. First things first, the Vancouver Canucks. John, you have been a ray of sunshine on this team.
Yes.
Most optimistic, glass half full.
I know that. Even the way you guys are promoting me now, cup half full guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like when that storm rolls in off the Pacific and the clouds are jet black, but there's that one sliver right there.
That's John Shannon.
By the way, right over Grouse Mountain, that is beautiful. Right over Grouse Mountain. That is beautiful.
They're blowing all these leads They're below the playoff bar. How do you feel about them now?
Well, I'm sure last night was frustrating. Because there were some positives. Obviously, JT Miller's play was positive. Lekkerimäki, I thought, was really good. To have Quinn Hughes back was really good. Kevin Lankinen kept them in the game the second half. There are some positives, but there are too many silly mistakes still. Höglander, silly mistake. I was concerned that Noah Juleson was out on the ice in the last 90 seconds of the game. So there's a couple of things that bother you about what's going on with the hockey club right now. At the same time, as they played last night, they did get a point. It's still a better record on the road, and it's on to Washington to see what the heck goes on against the Caps.
And let me correct myself. They're not below the playoff bar. They are on the final rung. 4 points for Miller. You have been an unabashed JT Miller fan.
Yes.
What do you think? Is that a breakout or a breakthrough performance from number 9?
What's the difference?
Well, a breakout is singular. A breakthrough means you have found something and now it's going to continue.
Well, he's an emotional guy, and if the 4 points last night, maybe it is a breakthrough. Maybe it is one of those ones that he can take the bull by the horns now and lead this team offensively. I loved his physical play last night, the 6 hits in addition to the 4 points. He wasn't very good in the faceoff circle, but you know what? They still were able to get through it. He's just he's a polarizing player. And when he's charged up, he is fun to watch. And he's one of those guys that I think teammates will, they do not have to like him, but they certainly have to respect the way he plays the game and the intensity that he brings to the ice.
They continue to scuffle along like this. We're not going to go down this rabbit hole again here, Matthew, but they are keeping themselves alive at the very least. But we've praised this management group, not only when they're stopped here in Vancouver, but in their other stops in their careers, particularly Rutherford, for striking early, identifying a problem, saying that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. We are past New Year's now, John Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
Early, it's getting late to be early. So when is he going to do
the
this?
Rest of the month.
When is he going to do this?
This being the major trade to help this team?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. That's a fair question. But when is Paterson coming back?
Probably Wednesday.
Well, we suspect this week.
Okay. What about Filip Hronek?
3 to 4 more.
Maybe after the tournament, right?
Well, I think they're hoping that it's before, but yes, it could be after the Four Nations.
So all of a sudden, if you add Paterson, and I read Ian's column with his brief interview with Elias the other day. It sounds like Elias understands the issue as well, and he was very transparent about it. But I think they've missed Hronek that much. I think that if Filip Hronek comes back, almost like a trade, Blake, and I know that's a cliche at this time of year, but if Hronek comes back and can compete at that level, that changes the whole complexion of that blue line. And it puts guys in their right spots again. Dare I remind people what everybody thought of Tyler Myers a year ago. And look at the year Tyler Myers has had. And the reason he's had a good season was that this management group showed some patience. And yes, you're right. These guys are normally a proactive group. There's no question. They've always been proactive. Jim Rutherford and Patrick, when they were together in Pittsburgh, were proactive. But they also know when to be patient. I think that's a big part of what they're going through right now, because you look at the injuries, you look at where they are. How long is Joshua out now? We don't really know. Hopefully he's back. He was just coming back into form. This team when it was playing well was not much different than the team the second half of the season last year. So
I think the best argument is
I'm preaching patience with injuries more than anything else, like rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I think they know they need changes on top of the injuries coming back, so they are aware they still need more. But I think the biggest argument is they probably don't want to deal from a position of weakness, and they might look like they're desperate now.
Yeah, and of course the other thing, John, is all discussion about adding a defenseman or adding a middle six scoring winger. All of that now is through the prism of, are you going to have to make a move with one of your top two center icemen? Right. So that has now been thrown for a different loop, I think, than what we were discussing, say, back in November, when it was evidently clear that you add a defenseman to the group and you would feel pretty good.
4-point nights from those respective players will kick that can down the road, though.
For sure. Well, but of course, winning would kick it down the road further, they're not
doing
winning as much.
And I'm still of the belief, and we all heard, we've heard the scuttlebutt in the last 3 or 4 days. I'm still of the belief that it's in the best interest of the Vancouver Canucks to keep both of them and work through it. And I don't care if you don't go to dinner and you don't like each other. When you go on the ice, you are a teammate and you play the game. And you play the game to win. And both of those guys understand that.
Well, certainly JT Miller played better last night, and that's a step in the right direction.
Best game of the year.
We'll see if best game in over a year, yes.
Yeah.
We'll see if Paterson can follow suit. And there might be reason to be optimistic there, John. I mean, if he needed rest, if he needed to, to heal this, that, and the other, he's had that opportunity now. And maybe even just to cool off from everything that was happening. I mean, there is a good chance here that Paterson is a bit of a new man here when he hits the ice.
One would hope so. And you know as well as I do that as much as we've heard Paterson talk, there's been lots of people behind the scenes talking to him too. The management's talked to him. The coaches have talked to him. They have some wise people in this organization. And one of the guys that doesn't get enough credit for his approach to the game, even though he's not a direct coach to Paterson, is Sergei Gonchar. I just think Gonchar is just a voice of reason so many times, always has been, even as a player. So I think that there's some positives that can come out of this. But if you're asking me for a timeline, I kind of agree with Matt that we're talking about probably prior to the Four Nations face-off, which is only 12 days after the end of January.
The other thing is his agent, Pat Brisson, came out and said, no problem with what Alvin said. He said sometimes players need a kick in the ass, which was that's what Pat's saying publicly.
Yeah, but as well as I do, Pat Brisson, who is one of the most high-profile agents, Pat Brisson is probably in constant communication with the club.
Yep.
And so I'm sure that in discussing what Ian and Patrick Alvin talked about, there was a forewarn that this was coming out to Brisson, and that they would say, "Okay, we understand. We're going to get a bit of criticism, but we're big boys and we can handle it."
Do you believe that by virtue of representing Hughes and Paterson, never mind all the other arguments that the pro-Paterson camp people can trot out, does that solidify Paterson's future in Vancouver? Even more so, the fact that shared.
I wouldn't say that. I think Paterson likes playing in Vancouver, nobody's asking for a trade. So it's to me, to have one guy represent, two of your best players. That's just a fact of life. Every team has that when you look at what's going on in the NFL. That's the norm rather than the.
It's not strange. No, you're right.
No, not at all.
John, we had a first ever yesterday here in this province. Canucks fans watched their favorite hockey team on Amazon, the streaming service, and many of them were flipping over. And it's a little more frustrating flipping over between apps, it must be said, than it is with changing
You need good
channels.
TV still. You still need
Yeah,
TV.
well, I guess. And then a lot of them were flipping over to watch the wrestling, WWE. And
By
it's
the way, that wasn't just
debut
the province
on
of
Netflix.
Columbia. That was the whole country.
Well, of course, but
But I know what you're saying, Matt. First of all, two things, because I'm an old dinosaur when it comes to technology. But I'll tell you what, I was amazed that there was very little criticism on social media on both aspects. Nobody was bitching that the Canucks were on Amazon, and nobody was complaining that Triple H was on Netflix. So I think that that's part of the learning curve of the new world. I mean, let's face it. Cord cutting is a fact of life in the television business right now. And what Amazon and Netflix are delivering is a younger audience who don't necessarily have cable television. And the demographics, I can't speak for wrestling, but the demographics that Amazon has had for its hockey games is fantastic. They are thrilled with not necessarily the ratings, because I think the ratings are still a little less than what Rogers had, but the demographics are fantastic. Younger people watching on a streaming service.
Walk me through this here, John. I don't know if you picked up on this. Maybe I'm alone in this. I feel like Amazon is talking down to the viewer a little bit. It feels like an American broadcast, even though it's a Canadian broadcast. The skill level of all the broadcasters is spectacular, and I quite like who's
Thomas Hickey.
Thomas Hickey's
very
very
good.
Quite
Covered. He was captain of Canada's World Junior. Covered him there, and you could tell that the young man had a bright future.
He's slick. He's very slick. And
Thomas Hickey is going to be a star for a long time.
And you know how I feel about that. And like these are all very capable broadcasters. It feels like it's a production choice by the producers here. Like they did everything but explain offside to me. I felt like last night. Like I thought it was a little strange.
Nah, I think you're a little.
I think you're looking for things to bitch about.
Yeah, I think the game coverage has been really good. I think it's been solid. I think you're finding and seeing stories. I think they're taking time to tell stories. I think the amount of isolated replays is very high. They've done a good job.
Absolutely.
With that.
All the production elements are great. Yeah, for sure. And the quality of picture is spectacular.
Replays sometimes, see, if there is a criticism from last night's game, they go to the replay of the Höglander penalty.
They made a mistake.
They show him first they show him first engaging with the puck carrier,
right.
And it's only a beat later did they show the actual shove on Anderson.
That happened twice last night, and they caught themselves both times.
Both times, yeah. They caught it both times, but that just comes with reps, right, John? Like they'll get.
I think. Oh, no? I haven't been around the production. I do watch it pretty closely. I think that what they're trying to do is get back to a basic of television of explaining why things happen a lot better. Their senior producers, Mark Askin, who I've worked with and know very, very well, and he understands the basics of television hockey production as well as anybody, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. As far as your Americanization, I think I think they open themselves up to that criticism a little bit, but I also think that new voices are a part of that, and the fact that when you talk about Thomas, when you talk about Jody Shelley, Shane Knighty, John Forsland, none of them live here. 3 or 4 of them are Canadian, but none of them live here, and so they don't get the day-to-day coverage of hockey that the 3 of us do. Mm-hmm. Like we're like you live in Vancouver, I live in Toronto, and I'll tell you what, I mean, hockey comes out of the concrete for us.
Yeah.
We live it every moment of every day. When you're tied to a hockey club, when you're tied to the Islanders like Thomas is, and Jody with Columbus and John with Seattle, and Shane with the Vegas goal.
When you hear something, it's news to you. You want
Well,
to.
but not only that is that Seattle, Columbus, Vegas, those are markets that require education. Those guys are in milieus where you were coaching up new hockey fans.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that much as it is that we get bombarded with hockey news all the time. And when you live in Vegas and you live in Columbus, you don't get bombarded with hockey news all the time.
And all that's fine. All that's fine, John.
You can be on.
All that's fine, guys. But you got to know your audience. You got to, and everybody in Canada does know all this.
And I think they're learning that.
Yeah.
And if that's the only complaint of this startup,
and it's a small one. Yeah.
It's a small one. And by the way, the whole picture thing it's a spectacular quality of picture.
It is.
I'm telling my kids,
warm-up
John.
last night.
I love the warm-up stuff
with Quinn Hughes and the brace on his hand.
I had it on while we're making dinner, and I'm telling the kids. I said, "Look at the quality of the picture, guys. Do you know something dinner? Like, it looks so bright."
More importantly, what was for dinner?
I had overmade pulled pork for my high school buddy's Christmas party, and so I had leftover pulled pork from that party, and so we did pulled pork bowls.
Oh my God! I love pulled pork.
Yeah.
Okay. January 27th, Canucks and Blues. March 24th, Canucks and Devils. Your next two Amazon Prime broadcasts, and that there was no bitching, and at least from this corner of the world, John, as you well know, this is one of the more technologically advanced and adaptable markets out there. Canucks.com was an industry leader at one point when Kevin Kinghorn was running it, so I'm not the least bit surprised. And I do wonder whether this signals, yep, we're all ready just to go to streaming, which brings us to the one super app, the one-stop shop, John, where we get everything in one place, and I don't need to be flicking between streaming services. And there could be news on that front after Disney decides these Fubo guys, they're a pebble in the shoe. They want to sue us. They want to take us on. Let's just buy them.
Yeah, I think this is more an American thing than it is for us at this point. But you know what? We're usually 4 to 5 years behind the Americans when it comes to this kind of thing. So what Disney did was, they want to launch their with Warner Brothers and with Fox. They want to launch a super app with lots of sporting events on it, which is so in buying one of their competitors and the one guy that was taking them to litigation, that solves the problem. I would not be surprised to see the new, I think it's called Venue. I would not be surprised to see Venue launch now before the Super Bowl in some form or manner.
Wow.
But it's going to be separate from ESPN's new app as well. So, like, they're going to own all this stuff, but it's still not going to be what you want it to be. Like, what you want, Matt, is a realistic want, but I don't think it's still going to be partitioned. You're still going to have to, have 4 apps going.
For instance, you look at Amazon. If you go to Amazon, I can buy apps within my app on Amazon.
Yep.
I can buy AMC Plus. I can now buy Sportsnet on Amazon. So, I mean, this whole thing is developing so fast. And this is just, I think, one way for the people, Bob Iger and the people at Disney, to try to stay ahead of the game.
Yep. And the good news is you'll be here to shepherd us through all this each and every Tuesday, John. Yeah. No, you will.
I'll tell you what, I just bought a new TV and it's got 300 apps on it, and I'm only using 286 of them. So.
How many screens do you have in your home, Shannon?
Well, I have 4 in my office, and that's where I watch most of the time.
So we're talking.
Tell us you're a former television producer.
These are 27-inch sort of TVs. These are more monitors than TVs, I'm guessing, or are we talking?
I have 4 40-inch monitors.
Holy crap!
See, I'm trying to reduce my screen time. People, my eyes are sometimes. Well, because my eyes sometimes.
Listen, there are more sports.
No, I know.
You should get blue light glasses so that you can.
Honestly, because my eyes hurt now some mornings.
I know.
But yeah, when you're a sports fan, you're going to have eyes on screen for several hours at a time because that's what we do.
I mean, last night I went into a little bit of withdrawal because it's Monday night. And
no Monday Night Football.
But I tell you what, though, that North Dakota State, Montana State football game was a hell of a football game, Matt.
Yeah, no,
it was a hell of a football game. It might have been the best college football game I've seen all season.
Yeah,
I just feel bad because our boy Travis Lulay was a Montana State guy,
I know.
and they were 15-0, and then they didn't pull it up. So
Yeah, they like only a 3-point loss. It's okay.
yeah, well, I mean, they were up against the Alabama of FCS football, John, and North Dakota State. All they do is win championships.
The Alabama of FCS.
Thanks for this, sir. Until next Tuesday.
The AHL juggernaut.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
See you, boys. Happy New Year.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, where you turn game night into a game weekend. Book your stay at the Wall. Enjoy the Sekeres and Price raid. Call the hotel, 604-331-1000. Ask for it by name. Some blackout dates supply based on availability. You can text 778-4029-9680. Email live at sekeresandprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
So, Vancouver Whitecaps FC, and I'm starting to notice all this player activity. In
Two
MLS.
more acquisitions for CF Montreal.
Exactly. Now, Axel Schuster did speak prior to the new year, talking about their next head coach. We don't want a revolution. We want someone to take over from this point and who brings new energy, changes a few things, and who also has maybe a little bit of a different approach. Someone who respects what we've built here. What are we thinking? Next week for a new coach? Is that?
I think it sounds like they're headed towards sort of an early next week announcement. There was some speculation that because of something Axel had said, they had their guy over Christmas and they were just waiting on visa stuff. And then he backtracked on that. He said, no. We're
So
down
there are three candidates.
Down to three,
Yeah.
but we'll get.
All
and
right.
so now I'm hearing that it's going to probably be some point next week, possibly early. The problem is, it sounds like they want to get that done before they complete any player acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just inferring that based on the lack of any player movement here, and you just wonder if there's going to be. I mean, the world of soccer is a big one, so there's always soccer players available. But
Yes, indeed.
But in terms of inside MLS, like again, CF Montreal is doing business within MLS, and the Whitecaps have not.
Well, I ask all this because players report on Saturday.
Yeah,
They fly to Marbella, Spain, a week from today.
Marbella.
Marbella.
Yeah.
Scusa. I would like to think the coach would be on that flight.
Yeah. You'd think.
I would like to think the coach would be here to greet them, but maybe that's asking too much.
To be fair, early going training camp is fitness pretty much only, right? So,
okay, but who's running that?
all the fitness coaches.
Okay.
I mean, they're all still in effect.
All right.
And there's guys like Brian White just got called to the U.S. men's national team camp, so he's going to be late arriving anyhow, and others are in similar boats. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Not afraid on that just yet because it's January the 7th.
Yeah, exactly.
But
should also mention Brian White has been once again recalled to Team USA, the red, white, and blue. So this is the second consecutive January camp for White as a member of the U.S.
It's the North American
men's
version
national
of the
team.
camp. They don't have the Euros for this January camp ever. So that's been his two looks. Not to water it down, but that's why he gets the spot. His spots open up when the Euro guys don't arrive. But it's a chance to make your presence felt and try to claw for minutes at other points in the season.
BC Lions release defensive end Pete Robertson, this coming off a career-low 2 sacks in 12 games in his lone season with the Leos. He stood to be a free agent next month. Anyways, I think they had higher hopes for him. He had put up some pretty good sack totals in Saskatchewan, but wasn't able to do that here in BC. And then yesterday we were talking about their offensive line and reinforcements and how you need to get better there, the big trade they made with Toronto. Alas, it doesn't look like UBC star Theo Benedette is going to be available to them. He's a Lions draft pick in the CFL College Draft, but he signed a futures deal with the Chicago Bears yesterday. He went to Bears camp last year, was released, but spent the entire year on the practice roster. So it sounds like the Bears want to see more from Benedette, and he's going to continue to be their property, at least early on here in the football offseason. And I'm kicking myself. We were discussing the Seahawks quarterback situation.
Yep.
Okay, 18, you're probably not going to get the franchise quarterback there. How about taking a flyer on Curtis Rourke somewhere in the middle rounds, right? Found out actually recently that he played this season with a torn or partially torn ACL. That somewhat explains why the Indiana coach was protecting him as he did in their blowout loss to Ohio State and a little bit in the playoff game as well. Curtis Rourke is going to get drafted, or at the very least is going to sign as an undrafted free agent. We'll see how the NFL feels about this knee injury. But
middle round, you said, not with the 18th.
No,
yes.
middle rounds.
Yeah,
middle
okay.
rounds.
Yes. Sure.
Middle rounds.
By all means.
As early as third, I would think. If you can get him, fifth, sixth, even better. And I would love to see him get an opportunity in that sort of scenario where, sure, you may have an incumbent starter, but you're not necessarily set long-term at the quarterback position. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Monday asked you, what do you think happens with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller? The options here were nothing, one trade, or both traded. What did the people say?
One traded.
One traded was leading for the longest time, but it got clipped at the end by nothing. Nothing got 48% of the vote. One traded got 46% of the vote.
It was close.
And both traded got but 6% of the vote. Diane, maybe I voted nothing because that's what I want to happen, not what I think will happen. Good honesty on you, Diane.
Very good.
JC, longtime listener, contributor. From a management perspective, is this situation that different than Garland and Besser 2 years ago? If a team is not willing to put together a fair offer, the Canucks will be patient.
Different.
And their patience could very well be rewarded.
Different in that there was no theory that Besser and Garland were contributing to some sort of suppression of the current version of the team. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that are going to tell you that Paterson and Miller being on the same team together is a detriment to the current version of the team. That's the difference.
Fatty High Pants, neither gets traded, but a teammate or two requests a trade because they're tired of the bullshit.
Mm. Yeah.
And John says, dump them both. Fucking tired of this.
and you know what? John said that before a 4-point game for JT Miller.
Yes.
You put it again, production and wins. Now, that was production without a win, but production and wins really turns this down to a simmer from a boil.
I think so. Errors and omissions, as mentioned, I should have asked Dreger about Demko. Forgot to ask about the Demko timeline there. We'll know more, I guess, tomorrow when the team gets to Washington and goes through morning skate. Anything to self-report?
I did have something and I forgot it.
An error within the body of errors and omissions. The tradition continues. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with us. Andrew and Grady both had their moments in errors and omissions over the years. Please do follow all our social channels, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. We're live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays, except for Friday. Friday, we're going a little earlier because of this early start in Carolina with yet another early start the next day in Toronto. So going 10 a.m. on Friday. Please join us then. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.